Estate Hustlers podcast. I am your host, Josh Appleman, founder and CEO of Appleman Properties. We're joined today with Neil Schmidt. Neil's an ex-police officer and firefighter turned NYC real estate expert. Using his background in mastering fear, he helps clients navigate the property market. Off duty, he's an outdoor enthusiast and a family man. Neil, we appreciate you coming on today. If you could, just let everyone else know a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, Josh, how are you? It's great to be here. You kind of summed it up. I hit every kid's exacta. I grew up and I became a police officer and then a fireman, both in New York City. And I spent 2.5 decades down there doing that. And that really, what I gained from that was how to handle fear, how to push through that fear. Or I like saying make friends with that fear and using the energy that fear conjures up in you to push you forward and propel you. Act like wind in your sail instead of wind in your parachute holding you back.
Nice. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
From the fire department, I then started investing in multifamily real estate. And that led me to mindset and really just focusing on how I can help people. And that then brought me here with you and your audience.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we came on live, and if you could just let everyone know, the audience know a little bit how you discovered mindset, and then what it's done to you in creating what you've now created around yourself.
So I look at mindset as the linchpin that holds everything else up, right? Like just picture dominoes lined up. Mindset's that first domino that knocks all the other dominoes over. And the way I came upon mindset was I left the fire department, I retired, and I now needed to find something else to do. And that turned out to be real estate and multifamily real estate. And my mentor in multifamily real estate is the one that actually started talking to me about mindset. And he gave me a quick example. We were sitting down at a restaurant, and he said, if I said to you, why did you lay your phone down right there? How would you take that? And I said, well, I don't know. I really wouldn't think much of it. He said, well, you could take it one of two ways, that I'm offended that you laid your phone down on the table when we're engaged in a conversation, or you could take it that there's a glass of water right there and that he was afraid the water would spill over and wreck my phone. And that led to how you perceive different things. That led me to Bruce Schneider's 7 levels of perception and his book, Energy Leadership. And that was the catalyst that pushed me into mindset.
7 levels of perception. What's that about?
So there's 7 different levels. And each day we kind of go up and down those levels. Most of us spend the majority of our time in the first 4 of those levels, 4 or 5 of those levels. And the easiest way of explaining that is just imagine you're in the supermarket parking lot and somebody backs into your car. Well, how do you respond to that? Do you jump out of the car and you're like, oh, it's always me. If I had no luck, if I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck. Everything always happens to me. You're in that victim level. Everything happens to you. You have no control. The outside world constantly affects you. You could up that to how I would normally react to it going back 5 or 10 years before I realized all of this. I'd get out and I'd be in conflict. I'd be yelling and screaming at the guy. What? You didn't see me there? You didn't see me sitting there? You don't know what'd you do? Get your license out of a Cracker Jack box? Like, open your eyes, use your mirrors.
Yeah.
And that's another elevated level from victim, because at least now you'll lash it out. You know that there's something more to it. You don't know how to react to it. So now you'll lash it out. The next level is concern. I get out of the car and I'm like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you need an ambulance? Something must be wrong because you didn't see me there. Like you hit me. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Acting out of concern for the other individual. Another level is taking responsibility. Now, even though I didn't cause the accident, even though I was just sitting there, I chose to go to that supermarket at that time, and I chose that parking spot to sit in. And just going up and down those levels of how we perceive things happening. Give you a really good example. I'm driving down the highway the other day, and this guy cuts me off. I'm in the right-hand lane. He cuts me off, and he zips down the exit ramp. Now, I could have responded to that in one of two ways. And notice I'm saying respond, not react. There's a big difference between the two. I could have responded to that in one of two ways. I could have been irate, white-knuckled, waving at him with the special middle finger. And that would have led me to reach my destination, and I would have been telling them about it. And when I got home, I would have been telling the wife about it. And I would have kept just reliving this. The other way I can respond to that and perceive that incident happening is that that individual had somewhere extremely important to be. Maybe their kid got hurt. Maybe somebody was deathly ill. Maybe somebody just got into an accident and somebody's in the hospital. Like, there's 1,000 different scenarios. Maybe he's rushing to his house because there's a major water leak. Like, there's 1,000 different reasons why he could have been acting like that. So I show him a little grace. I wish him well. I ask the good Lord to watch over him, to get him there safely, to make sure everything's okay at the end of the day. And then I go on about my day. And before I even hit the next mile marker, I forgot about that incident. It's not playing in the background over and over and over again. And my day, my day's stress-free. Woosah.
Nice. I need to practice that. I do.
It's a little tough. Like, I was from New York City, and I really lived in conflict. Like, everything was about me, and it wasn't about other people. Yeah. And once I started seeing it as about other people, it kind of brought my temperament down. It put my temperament in check.
Nice. How is this? How did all this get you started in real estate? How did you know you needed to get into real estate? You were an ex police officer. Assuming you were an ex police officer after you got into real estate, or was that before?
So I purchased a duplex while I was still a fireman, and really what happened was I felt like it was time to get out. Like, there were a lot of different signals coming my way. I was a fireman during Ebola, and I had a very near miss. And I'm like, I'm exposing my family to all of this stuff. It's time for me to find another way of making cash. And I had one rental. I had a duplex. I actually had two rentals. I had a duplex and a single family. And they were doing okay, but they were more of a hobby. It wasn't a business. And then I said to myself, well, if I'm going to leave the fire department, what am I going to do? And real estate, and more specifically multifamily real estate, popped onto my radar. And I really liked when I started learning about what real estate really was, and I started treating it as a business. I really liked what it could do for me. So I decided that I was going to retire from the fire department, and I was going to go into real estate and buying multifamily properties and working that angle. And I went out and I found a mentor, and here we are now.
Nice. What was the size of your first multifamily?
So the first deal I got into was a syndication, as in on the kind of the LP side of things.
Got it.
So that was 43 doors, and I now presently own a 8-plex outright by myself. Nice. Well, myself, nice. My partners, but it's not a syndication.
How have you seen the performance of the syndication? Are you happy with the deal as a whole?
The syndication's an absolute home run.
That's awesome.
We purchased it November of 2020, so kind of right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah,
and that property has performed tremendously well. Yeah,
a lot of people don't realize that being an LP in a deal is actually you can be in a lot better position than even on a GP or owning the deal outright. Just being an LP, sitting back and letting the team do the work, and still have all of their returns, all the benefits.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being an LP. It all depends on what your temperament is, what you're looking to do, what your vision is, your 3, 5, 7 year vision, and how the piece of an LP fits into that.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I like both sides of it, honestly, the LP and the GP side.
Yeah, for sure. What do you find most challenging? The most challenging part of coming from public services into real estate?
The most challenging. Wow, that's a great question. The most challenging. Understanding the nuances of real estate and specifically multifamily. So it's a whole, like I did something for 2.5 decades. Like I knew that cold. Like I would roll out of bed. I really didn't have to think about anything, right? Because I knew how things were going to go. Now I enter into a new world and it's just learning all of those little nuances. And when something arises and I decide to take an action, is that action really right? Because now I'm taking that action more from gut than I am from knowledge or experience.
Yeah. Well, and intuition is the superpower that
Yeah.
makes a lot of great decisions and a lot of great deals. It's yeah, your gut's telling you something.
I will tell you that the biggest benefit I had coming from the public service was I spent 2.5 decades solving problems.
Yeah.
And when I came to real estate, that's essentially what we're doing anyway. We're just solving problems. They're different problems than what I was used to, but problem solving is problem solving.
Yeah.
And that was a big benefit I brought with me.
Where are you going to take your real estate to? What do you have a 10-year trajectory for the unit count, or how far you want to take this thing?
Honestly, I do not have, I haven't, and it's funny you asked that question, and it's funny what my answer is because I'm very big into setting those goals, but I don't have specific numbers on unit counts or cash flow. I look at it more from the perspective of where I came from and where I am now. So I don't want to pigeonhole myself into, oh, I need to have a specific amount of doors in 5 years, because I feel like that's how you end up forcing yourself into making a deal look better than what it really is, because I have to hit that mark of 25 doors, 100 doors, 250 doors in a year. So I just look at it on an individual basis of, does this deal make sense? If it does make sense, then I'll acquire it. I don't look at it from the perspective of physically putting a number on it.
Got it. Are you currently underwriting deals, and are you building
Yes.
your GP team? And then are you you're
So
underwriting?
so my GP, like I have my team in place. So that's taken care of. Are we underwriting deals? Yes, we are. And I'm just going to continue to underwrite those deals. I feel like I think the market's starting to soften a little bit, but I think that we're really going to see kind of like where the dust is going to settle more towards the end of this year, the first half of next year. So I'm in a buy mode. I'm still like, I will buy if the numbers make sense, but I'm in a very conservative mode also, because I'm more concerned with having properties filled than acquiring properties.
So are your properties all in New York?
No. Yeah, I actually don't have anything in New York. I have it in
Okay.
Pennsylvania and Virginia.
Got it. How's the real estate market in New York?
I do not know. I don't. So New York, I call, and I spent 40 years there. I don't want to offend anybody, but I call New York the communist state because of the politics that are going on in the state. And I don't want to have anything to do with New York. So I really don't know I don't pay attention to it because it doesn't affect me. Like I'm not buying in New York. That's
Got it.
just, and that's me.
Is it just impossible to own anything? And I guess give me some pointers, give the audience some reasons why, because I've heard things, but coming straight from you, it kind of solidifies it.
So when I say New York, I'm specifically talking about the city, but I'm also talking about the state because the state's politics are very similar to the cities. The cities is much more extreme, but I'm looking at things like rent stabilization laws, right? Like when I don't like big cities just in general, but I specifically don't like New York City because they'll come in and they'll put mandates on you of rent stabilization. They'll put mandates on you of, well, you have to have X amount of people in a certain income range for us to validate your
Like rent
permit to
control?
build. Rent control, rent
Okay.
stabilization, yes.
Wow. Yeah, that would make it so they're raising taxes and putting all these policies, and then you can't increase the rents enough to even cover the costs that they're putting
Yes.
out there.
And in some instances, they'll tell you that you can't have a certain rent increase either. Right? Like if I go in and we'll use New York City. I mean, I don't know what the numbers in New York City are, but when I was living there, I'm living in Pennsylvania now. When I was living there, I mean, a studio apartment in Manhattan would be $3,000 a month, which sounds insane. But they'll go into your building and they'll tell you, well, $3,000 is where your rents are now. Market is 3,700, but you're only allowed to raise your rents per year 5%.
Wow. That's
So how am I going to make that deal work? How am I going to get from my 3,000 to 37? And those numbers, like I'm just making those numbers up, but that's the reality of it. And New York is very famous for doing things like that and similar to that. Right? Like the eviction process is just insane. Like I had an eviction down in Virginia, and it took me start to finish. It was 45 days, and that probably took me a week longer than it should have. And that was on me. It wasn't on the county. Up here in New York, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to take a lot longer than 45 days.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think Illinois, Chicago area. I was talking to a buddy. He said it could take up to 6 months. Yeah, and they get extension after extension after extension. So it's impossible to get them out.
Yes, and I just, not that I don't think tenants deserve to have rights. Like I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is,
but tenants, I don't have paying tenants when they stop paying, they stop. That affects everyone. You've got maintenance and capex and everything. Everyone's responsible to help contribute in the cost of the building. We're talking about non-paying tenants. It could take up to 6 months. Just pay. If you pay the rent, there's no conversation.
Yeah. Yes. But and in New York too, like once they just squatters, just in general, like I know that, and again, I don't know the real estate laws in New York as well because I'm not there. But when I was a cop in New York, all they had to do was show me a piece of mail that was dated 30 days previous to the reason why I was on their doorstep, and that was it. Like I couldn't, as a police officer, I couldn't do anything but refer to you to landlord tenant court.
Yeah.
So if you had somebody that came in and somehow had a piece of mail sent to them and they were there 30 days, even if that piece of mail was like criminally put there, right? Like I could have a piece of mail sent to our address in New York, and then I could show up 30 days later and say, look, here's my mail. And literally they would be like, all right, just go to landlord tenant. Like there's nothing we can do.
Wow.
Like, how is that?
Oh no.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. But that's why I'm very particular about the political climate that I'm going to invest in.
Yeah,
right? Like
that's key.
You hear horror stories, and again, I don't know anything about it because I'm not there. But you hear horror stories about like places like Seattle and and Portland, how they, a couple of years ago, the people took over like a little area, right? And they put up like signs, and they wouldn't let the police come in, and they just like took over neighborhoods. And then there were people in those neighborhoods that were legitimate, like hardworking, good, decent, salt of the earth people, and they couldn't get any services because these people like kind of just cordoned off these 5 square blocks. And
I think they're called like zones, or I can't remember what word they put it for, something zones. That's I know exactly what we're talking about. That's incredible. So do you all use property management in front of your all asset management?
So we have property management on the syndication down in Virginia. We self-manage.
Got it. So you're doing the day-to-day, and then you use third-party vendors if anything comes up, and they get out there and get things taken care of.
So so the beautiful part about my team is based in Virginia. That's my market. The beautiful part about my team is I have maintenance right within it. So
Nice.
I have maintenance and property management built into the core of my team, because those are the 2 pieces that affect operations the most. And when I say operations, a big cost is turnover. And a lot of times that turnover comes because the client's not happy. It's not because they want to move across town. It's not because they got a new job. It's just because somebody rubbed them the wrong way in some way, shape, or form. And that comes from property management, and that comes from maintenance. If your stuff's getting fixed immediately, I mean, within 24 hours for those small, reasonable things, if your stuff's getting fixed and your issues are being addressed, there's no reason for you to leave. And if you don't leave, then I don't incur the cost of that turn.
Yeah.
And that the vacancy that turn causes. So it's just better for the bottom line.
Yeah, for sure.
I have those 2 elements in-house.
That's huge, because you control the expenses essentially, and the performance. Totally control it. That's something that we brought in house, because it's one thing trying to rely on someone else to do what you need them to do, and it's another thing doing it with your team, and you can poke as hard as you need to poke to get things done. So
yes, and things get done, right? It's not like I'm waiting for. So a great example is pest control. We use a third party for pest control, and they didn't realize that the appointment was today. I had that, like, we're waiting around for them, and they just don't show up because somehow we weren't on the book. I'm like, how are we not on the book? Like, we've been on the book. Like, what's going on here? Or they show up late and I can understand showing up late, right? Because you don't know what's going on with the customers beforehand. Maybe they had an incident. Maybe somebody tapped out or called out sick. Like, there's a lot of different things that are going on. But again, now I have a guy sitting there waiting for them to show up. I told all the residents this was going to happen today, and now I got to retell the residents, well, it didn't happen today. We had to reschedule for net. Like, so as the more stuff I can handle in-house, the more I'm in control of the timeline, and I know that it's going to be executed upon.
Yeah, we've seen a huge performance shift for sure, and you never know. Well, you kind of know, but you never know how big it can truly impact until you make the change. So that's huge. What advice would you give someone that's looking to get into multifamily? They're trying to connect the dots, trying to figure out what is real estate investing, what's it all about. What path would you recommend that they go down first? And there's not a wrong answer. It's just
I'm a big proximity guy. Put yourself in proximity of other individuals that have done what you're looking to do, and go hang out with them. Yeah,
you had mentioned mentor. Can we touch on that for just 2 seconds?
Absolutely.
Because that's something that you knew that you needed to do. What got you? How did you navigate on even finding a mentor?
So there's 2 ways of finding a mentor. One is you can kind of pay for that mentor. So you can join a group or a mastermind. And I would do a ton of research before I just shelled out a check. The other way is to actually find somebody locally that's doing what you want to do, and then go ask them a question and pick their brain. And when they tell you this is gold right here, Josh, when they tell you, because they're going to tell you to do something trivial, right? They're going to tell you to go read a book, or they're going to tell you to take this action, or to call 5 brokers, or whatever it is. You immediately go do what they tell you to do. And then you call them back up and you say, listen, I read that book. I have a question about chapter 3. Or I went and called 5 brokers, and what should I do next? This is what I took the action you told me to take. This is what I took away from that action. What's the next thing? And if you do that, you'll find somebody. Like, you really will. I can't tell you how many people because I'm the book guy. I'll tell you to go get this book.
Yeah.
And I want to see if you're going to read the book, and I want to see if you're going to follow up with me. And I've only had 2 or 3 people that have done that over, I don't know, 40, 50 people that I've suggested it to.
Nice. Well, and that kind of separates the people that are serious from the people that are just
it's the first hoop. And then the second hoop is to see if they are consistent with that, right? Because a lot of people you can do anything once.
Yeah.
But are you going to keep on and keep on and keep on?
Yeah. That's the biggest piece. You get frustrated by how long it takes to find a good deal. And that's what knocks 90% of the people out of real estate.
Took me 18 months.
Yeah. Just keep showing up, keep underwriting. It'll come. And that's where consistency wins all. And that's everything in life. Consistency, show up every day and do your best. But finding a mentor that is willing to show you the path. You're there to connect the dots, and you need a clear path, because you're ultimately protecting yourself against yourself.
Yes.
And a mentor will help you from making moves, hopefully, that they have already experienced and have already figured out that that's not the right move to take.
They speed up the timeline.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So
the learning curve.
What kind of books would you recommend out there?
On what?
Just anything. Get us in real. I want to get into real estate. I don't know how to do it. What book are you going to tell me to read?
Real estate, and what book am I going to tell you? I always go with the book that was suggested to me.
Yeah.
And that's Blue Ocean Opportunities by Medawar, Sharif Medawar.
I like that. I'm gonna write that down.
That's a kind of more on a generic side of things, of start to think differently about real estate, and it shows you the power of real estate.
Blue Ocean.
It shows you the power of thinking creatively.
Got it. Cool. Awesome. Neil, we appreciate you having you on the show today. If a listener wants to get a hold of you, learn more about yourself, just pick up some pieces, how can they get a hold of you?
Neil at neilschoepp.com. So it's NEIL at NEILSCHOEPP.com.
Perfect.
And then we'll put me directly.
Perfect. And then we'll put your information in when we publish the episode as well. But great conversation. Appreciate you coming on, and look forward to seeing more of what you're doing.
Josh, it was great talking to you. I hope your listeners and your viewers really took something out of this. Let me know. Drop me a comment and let me know what you wish would have been brought to the table and what your key takeaway was, and start the conversation. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. High five, Neil. Appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.